Hey folks, it's Will. I wanted to do a quick video here for you today, talk a little bit about the Mk8s and the Mk6s and the Mk10s, and kind of just show you a little bit of a comparison here. First off, let me apologize, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. It's like 95 degrees outside and I'm sick, so if I have to take a little bit of a pause during the video, please don't worry about me. I'm just a little bit ill. Anyway, I've got some knives here. I wanted to just do a quick comparison video. I grabbed the only Mk10 and Mk8 that I have available to me, but these are all already spoken for and they're about ready to head out to customers. So I wanted to go ahead and get the video done so I can get these shipped out. Anyway, so the Mk6 is, it's not my first design. My first design was the Mk12, and kind of the way that the story goes is, I had come off of making the battle songs, and basically I needed to get a knife design that actually was commercially like viable, and designed the Mk12s. And the Mk12s are integrals, and for whatever reason I was just like, I guess go big or go home. And my first folding knife design was an integral frame lock. I mean, that's kind of ambitious. If you guys know anything about integrals and designing integrals, they're just like ridiculously hard to get them to work right. And at the time I was making them on a Tormach PCNC 1100, and they just didn't come out right. And so, you know, I was like quickly draining all the cash I had for school, and you know, I was like, well, I ought to design something that's a little easier to manufacture. So I built the Mk6s, and those took off. And so the Mk6 is really my first commercially successful knife. It's not my first design, but it's the first one that really kind of took off and got popular support and stuff like that. So from that we got the Mk7, which is basically a smaller version that's a frame lock that the Mk8 is evolved from. And then the Mk8 is basically an evolution of that particular design. So the Mk8's got some other improvements on it, the skeletonized frame, the 3-piece pivot on it, some other things too, but basically the Mk8 is very much related to the Mk6. The Mk10, not so much. The Mk10 was designed from the ground up. I did this last year, but basically this was designed to be a fighting knife, and designed this as basically something that a person could use to defend their life as a backup weapon. Now, I pretty much never really advocate for using knives as a primary self-defense tool. I'd much rather have a gun. But if you are like close distance, or you've just expended the 5 shots out of your J-frame or something like that, this is much better than open fist. So you know, the Mk10, what it's going to give you is you know, a more cocked forward angle on the blade, so it's actually in line with your wrist, and it's also going to give you the integral titanium back strap here, which is also going to give you the double bolster, also integral, so that's a strike surface. And these things are like really strong, so much more in the line of a fighting knife. It's got, you know, corrugations all around the knife here to give you more grip. That's the whole idea behind the Mk10, is it was designed to be a backup tactical weapon. So the Mk6, where does that fit in with all this stuff? Well, in my original lineup, when I didn't have the Mk10, it was my tactical knife, and you know, it was for a long time the Moon tactical knife. It was a 4-inch full-size fighting knife, but the way I kind of look at it now that I have the Mk10, which is basically a purpose-built fighting knife, which, I mean, you could do utility work with that as well, but it was really designed to be a tactical blade. The Mk6s are kind of an all-arounder, and they are still a really good EDC blade, but they're also a pretty decent fighting knife too. So the thing that's different between the Mk6 and the Mk10, the reason why you'd buy a Mk6 over a Mk10 is it's a little lighter. It's also a little bit smaller in the pocket and a little more trim. The same silhouette as the Mk8, it's got a thicker blade. So if you want to have a little bit stronger knife, this thing's got a thicker blade, a thicker lock, and it's going to give you that bolster lock there too. So you know, a lot of people really like this particular design, and there's still a core group of people who just are absolute die-hard fans for the Mk6. And I can see why. I mean, it's still a really viable design, even compared to the Mk10, which is a little bit more modern. It gives you that tapered frame on it, which I'm famous for. You know, I'm the only maker who does this, where my frames taper from the bolster to the butt of the knife, and it makes it very, very carryable. So overall, you know, with the Mk6, you're going to get a slim package that's going to pack a 4-inch blade on it, a thick stock, in this case CTS XHP. And you know, they're very formidable tools. You know, as far as a fighting knife, as far as a utility knife, they're going to do really well for you in both roles. So there is a useful use for it. They are not as light as the Mk8s. I don't pretend that that's the case. In my opinion, I think the Mk8 still carries better than the Mk6. It's very easy to walk out the door with a Mk8 and completely forget that you have it in your pocket. The Mk10s, not so much. You know, they have some weight to them. Mk10s weigh about 7 ounces, and a little bit less, I guess, depending on what kind of scales you got on there. But in the case of the Mk6, you know, we're talking about a 5-ounce knife, and so they're considerably lighter than the Mk10. So if you want something that's still pretty light, going to give you that thick stock blade and the bolster lock, you know, the Mk6 is really a good way to go. The Mk8s are really designed to be a utility knife, and so if you're looking for something that's like a straight up EDC type knife, the Mk8 is probably the way to go. And if you want something that's kind of like a fighting knife, something that you're going to keep as a backup weapon to, you know, your Smith & Wesson Shield or your Glock 43 or whatever, you could go with the Mk10. Not to say that, you know, the Mk6 or the Mk8 can't be pressed into that role, but in my opinion, this is just kind of the way it was designed. The Mk10 was designed to be a tactical knife. The Mk8 was designed to be a utility knife, and when I had designed the Mk6, it was kind of the all-arounder. So the Mk6s are back for a limited time on them. I'm not going to bring them in to be basically like a full production sort of thing. I'm just going to do a short run of them because, like I said, at the end of the day, you know, as far as a utility knife, if I'm going to build utility knives, I'm pretty much going to build Mk8s. If I'm going to build tactical knives, I'm going to build Mk10s, because that's just the way I see it, is like, you know, one specialized and the other's, you know, specializing in the other thing. But the Mk6s are a pretty good jack of all trades type knife. You know, like I said, a little bit lighter than the Mk10, a little bit beefier than the Mk8, and kind of gets you a nice midpoint there as far as tactical versus utility. And a lot of people still really like them. They are great carrying knives, and for such a large knife, they do carry really, really well. So just kind of a little bit of a comparison there. Let me give you a quick comparison to the Mk10, because, you know, we are still talking about a thick stock frame on here. Now the Mk10 is going to compare more favorably, or more fairly, I guess, against these slab side Mk6s. You can see the kind of stock thicknesses that we're looking at here. The Mk10 is going to be just a little bit beefier. Again, it's got that full titanium spine on it and grip down here, so you know, you're going to get that that reinforcement there. And on the Mk6s, I stopped running things like Kieranite for scales on Mk6s just because I didn't think they were durable enough. But on the Mk10, you can do that because it's like shrouded on 3 sides, and it's very, very durable that way. But you get the same thickness blade stock on them. The pivots and stop pins and all the mechanical bits are pretty much exactly the same. The locking surfaces, the same amount of locking surface on both knives. And I think the Mk10 is just a little bit faster to flip open. It's a little bit more like a flipper. It's designed to be a little quicker on the flip. That's not to say the Mk6 is slow. The Mk10 is just very fast. It's a very good flipper. The way that the blade is balanced and weighted is just a little bit more conducive to opening quickly. But they're both going to be fully encapsulated blades on there. They both have got tapered frames, you know, just a little bit different silhouette to it. This one's a little bit more modern. One thing that you are going to get with the Mk10 that you're not going to get out of the Mk6 is this has got a finger groove here for the flipper. So it gives you a little bit of a little shallow groove there. The Mk8 has that as well. It's just a little bit more modern design, as you can see there. So really, at the end of the day, like I said, the Mk6s are available. I'm only going to make 6 of them this year, and you know, just kind of the way that the materials kind of worked out. You know, I usually get 3 blades out of a billet of steel, and so if I do 2 billets of steel, it gives me 6 blades. But they're available for right now. I'm sure they'll pretty much go pretty quickly. I've got one of them already sold, so there'll be 3 up on the website as of the posting of this video. If you're interested in one, head over to my website. You do not have to wait or place a custom order or anything like that. You just go in and find the knife you like on my current inventory page, add it to your cart, and check out. It's at www.willmooncustomknives.com. And if you have any questions about the knives, feel free to ask in the comment section below, or send me a PM or an email or whatever you want. More than happy to talk over knives with you. It's really, that's why I'm here. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you later. Bye.